أوند وشمية نتقداش شماخ تأتي ملكوتاخ نهوي سوينخ إكند وشمية أبر حولان لحمة سنكانا يومنا واشوق حوبين إكنا داب حنان شوق لحيوين ولا تعلن نسيونا إلا قصا من بيشة متول دي لاخي ملكوثة حي لو تشبحته العالم عالمين آمين. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. As I said, Dr. Errico had some technical difficulties and asked me to jump in and do this session tonight. I have a couple updates for you and a couple things since I run a lot of our YouTube channel and I work very closely with the foundation on the website. We are updating our YouTube channel, and I actually last week released all of the Revelation sessions from mid-June to last week to the public, and because of that we've had a lot of traffic and more. I think we gained about 13 subscribers, so apologies for not doing more public releases, and also allows you, if you want to share with your friends, you can now point them to the YouTube channel and discuss the latest stuff that you've been learning. And if you have any feedback on that, please share with us or share with the foundation. I put some links there. The other thing that I wanted to share is the benefits of registering. I know you know it, but I'm hoping to open this and have the link available publicly so people don't have to go through the registration, so we can remove that barrier. But the benefit of registration is sometimes the sessions have material that we are not sharing publicly because you need to get it in the context of what we're teaching at the time. So the benefit of registering, as you well know, is getting the link when the material is not published outside of the group that attended the session or had registered for it. So with that said, I'd like to first talk about what Dr. Errico, how it hit me last time. When I was listening to him explain that the four horsemen and the creatures who are riding the horses. So it's the horses and the creatures. And I know it's one of those topics that constantly come up. It's rarely you can watch a show that has any biblical references. I think most recently on Netflix there is a comedy show. I can't think of the name of it. Hopefully somebody will type it into the chat. But a lot of them, without spoiling it has the four horsemen of the apocalypse. The fact that the struggle between what the horse represents and what the rider represents, it really hit me hard of where we are. It's like we're always, by religion, at least my experience, is always telling you to elevate and act from that spiritual true self that you have, with typically very little guidance. But the fact that we do have the side that is that we have to sometimes struggle with, and that's, I just did the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, and part of the Lord's Prayer, because Jesus knew this about us, and he knew all humans have that, is do not let us enter into temptation and deliver us from the tempter or evil, or so just that. To me, is where the four horsemen of the apocalypse ties in, is we have a constant human desire to sometimes shine, dominate, obtain some form of power and recognition. And sometimes it can be very healthy, because you can become a great teacher, you can become a great philanthropist, and gain a lot of wealth and use it in good ways. So that it's not that the writer of Revelation and Jesus throughout his ministry did not condemn that desire that rises in us. He actually, Jesus often saw that in his apostles and the people around him, and he lifted them up, even even the people who were struggling and were at the lower tiers of society, the peacemakers, the mourners. He saw that everybody has a role to play in the kingdom, and with that role also comes some of the struggle. I know that I've been tempted, just mentally, never to manifest it physically, to like, if there's this one person could go away, it just, whatever the go away means, won't the world be so much better? And then when I reflect on that in my meditation, and I dig deeper into my thought, I often think, I can't, that person is acting from a different space than my space. Jesus struggled with that and ran into the people who were acting from a power position, and he saw that their struggle, and yet he refused to play at the same level. Probably one of the few exceptions is when he went into the temple and started turning the tables. That got to him, that the fact that he felt that he needed to do something, and that's a very strong action when he did that, and because he felt that even though the temple did not contain God, it was considered a holy place, and he wanted to demonstrate to his followers, as well to new followers, that this place should not be about selling and cheating and making money off God. And for many years in Christianity, early Christianity, until basically Constantine in the year 320 something, 21 is when the Nicene conference took place, and the religion, the Christianity became the official religion of a state. Prior to that, his followers, the followers of early Christianity, and I think it's the strongest period of Christianity, was about behavior. It was not about a belief system. So we did not have a way to declare Christianity. It was by the way you act, and this is straight out of Jesus. The way you act, it's not by saying in Jesus' name. It's the way you behave. It's the way you manifest the teachings in your daily interactions. So for many years, that was the form of Christianity, and how people knew that this person is a follower of Jesus, because they didn't even have that. They started being called mainly like Nazarenes, or the follower of the guy from Nazareth. That's where Nazarene comes from. But they didn't wear crosses, they didn't have pictures, and wherever they prayed, they were forbidden, actually, because that's part of the Jewish religion, and that's still to this day part of Islam. And we've seen recent people taking almost actually to violence in some cases whenever there was a picture of the Prophet or God or anything in the name of Islam. The pure belief system of these Semitic religions, Christianity is one, Judaism is another, and Islam, is that you cannot put an image on God, because God is spirit. So anytime you see God with a beard, or God touching man or something, this is all metaphorical. And it would have been frowned upon by the early Christians and the Jewish people and the Muslims to this day. And then when you see images of the prophets, the reason they didn't create an image of the prophet is because they didn't want to distract from first God, because all the prophets came to promote God. They didn't come to promote themselves. They didn't come to promote their tribe. They didn't come to promote a specific path. They were promoting God and God's presence and God's rule and God's power and God's love for us. Each one of the prophets had a slightly different angle into it. As you probably heard me before, my favorite is Jesus. And with Jesus, it's typically his focus. And I see Dr. Errico joined us. So part of that, the desire to elevate God above all is why all the images were taken down. And so back to this struggle between our human desires to do things. I was giving you the example of if this one person goes away. And I've talked more than once with different groups who are passionate about anything to do like with the environment, anything to do with loving trees or animals that were being lost because of deforestation and things like that. If we can snap or I could snap my fingers and make that issue disappear, do we think that the earth will be a very peaceful, happy place and we will feel that peace? Or do we also then go into the next struggle? And I believe more often than not, the people who are honest with me told me that we probably will move into the next struggle. We're not going to be at peace until we fix everybody and everything. And that's part of that struggle between what the horse represents and the creature on the horse represents. And for anybody who missed last week's session with Dr. Errico, it is available on YouTube. And if you do a search on Rocco A. Errico, or if you go to youtube.com /one word, Rocco A. Errico 7, you can go straight to the channel. Hopefully I'll add a link to it on our Danohara website. So the creature representing the higher self, and the horse representing either blood or domination or war or death. Those are what the horses represented. The revelator, John, was trying to guide us towards, the struggle is going to exist, and the struggle will always exist across Earth. And more, as Dr. Errico said last week, it's not going to engulf the whole Earth. So the people who want to see that struggle boil up all the way to create the end of the world, at least according to John the Revelator, it's not going to happen. It's going to be regional. It's going to, according to him, maximum maybe get 25% of Earth will be in trouble. The other 75 will be experiencing more normal settings. But obviously, being a follower of Jesus, I want all of Earth to be peaceful. I want everybody to experience the kingdom of God and live according to the rules of the kingdom, which are the rules of God based on him. I say him, but based on God loving us. And I agree with Dr. Errico. When I say God, it's kind of like shrinks that super powerful spiritual presence that we talk about in Allah or in the Ithya Rabba. And the terms that Aramaic uses, even Arabic, Allah is a big word that just encompasses so much. It's the presence, and in Islam they can't describe what God is, so they describe the qualities of God, the qualities that we see in our daily lives, from strength to passion to compassion to love, to power, to all. They have 99 names of God that they can list, and anytime you see somebody whose name is Abdul something, it's usually that something refers to one of the God's qualities. So Abdul Rahim is the one who is under the power of the compassionate. and they should be representing, and the name is given to them so they could represent that power. So, I love where Dr. Errico has taken us. He and I talk often before and after these talks, and we get inspired by each other. That's why, as much as I wanted to go into teaching today, I was talking about early Christianity and how it shifted. It shifted big time once it became a state's religion, because the state wanted to control it. So they took the old temples and they converted them into meeting places for the Christians. The temple had a store. The temple had images. They sold images of the gods and family images, and so depending on which god the temple was dedicated for. Now they're all dedicated to this new Christian god, but the vendors, and including the queen of the Byzantine queen, missed their little images and things like that, and they rebelled. And at the time that the church authority, now we're talking about, again, 300 years after Jesus had died, decided, okay, it's worth it for stopping the persecution and making Christianity the religion of the nation, to go ahead and compromise a little bit. And it's unfortunate because it created this whole new industry that distracts more often than not. And sometimes it works out for a lot of people, having the cross or the image of a saint or an image of an apostle. It brings them, a connection. And if that works for you, then keep doing it. But the original format was you praying to God anywhere, anytime, anyhow, because the presence is always there. And that was Jesus's focus. As he even said, when you pray, go into your most inner closet in the house, basically almost like where you store the food, or the pantry or something like that, is probably what they had at the time in Nazareth. And close the door so nobody even knows that you are communing with God, and commune there. And when you decide to fast, to honor, to wake yourself up, and make sure that your hair is clean, your face is clean, your clothes are clean, because you don't want people to see and know that you're fasting. So a lot of what Jesus was teaching is how to get you connected with God. And I'm tying this to the upper self on the in the case of the horses of the apocalypse, is for you to overcome those desires of self-power or self-destruction or domination or bloodshed or anything, or greed, envy. All these things is what those horses represented. And that's why we see chaos across the world. And then we hear about the oil companies. We're paying through the nose for our gas. And then we hear that in the first quarter, they had best revenue, best profits in like 20 some years, I believe, is the last assessment I heard. So here we are. And who what is the oil company? Who is Shell? I know a bunch of my family members own Shell stations, and at least owned, if they don't own. I have friends who own Exxon and so forth in the Northwest. So these people are not, Shell and Exxon, and we can point the finger at the logo somewhere when the news talks, but these people are you and me. They're people who go and work at the gas station and they sell Coke or a hot dog and maybe wipe your windshield when you get a full tank of gas. These are the people who are their bosses, are the ones who are getting the memo from other people who are sitting in the boardroom, who are saying, hey, this is an opportunity, things are going to be expensive, so let's jack up the prices. And there are people that are refusing to play that game. I know I've watched recently in the local news, gas stations who are basically said, we're not going to make profits, or we're not going to gouge. We know what our cost is, and we know where we can set the price. And they basically try to maintain below the market level, because they wanted to get, they felt the pain of their community, so they acted from their hearts, not from the opportunity to make a lot of money now. And I'm sure that when these people, you know, if the business struggles, and I don't think their business will struggle because their neighborhood is now, they know they are part of the neighborhood, and they'll go there even though they can get cheaper gas maybe somewhere else eventually. So that those are the things that really make the kingdom that Jesus talked about. That's what makes that the dynamic. And do you see, like, I mean, I saw that the news clip, and those people just on the outside, they don't look like Christians, but on the inside, I know that they are followers of the teachings of the kingdom. And that's how you know them. You know them because they're doing the right thing. We always want somebody to, you know, carry a flag, or you know, we look at you know, are they wearing this type of cross or that type of cross? When I grew up in the Middle East, the crosses can tell you if the person is Maronite, Baptist, Catholic, Greek Orthodox, just by looking at what type of cross they're wearing. And I have a story of one of my aunts almost getting killed because she was running, she didn't wear a cross, and they were running during war in Lebanon, the civil war in the 70s. She was running from one place to a safer place. They were going through that, basically they were surrounded and they were being released. The civilians were being let out of that area, and her, you know, her luck, she found a cross on the side of the road as she was running, and she grabbed it and put it on, thinking, I'm going to be going through. And she's Christian, but of a specific type. She put this cross on and hoping that the people who are checking, the people who are leaving, validating that no fighters and so forth are getting out, would see that cross and basically smile upon her. Well, it was the wrong kind of cross, and she got lucky that the person who saw it basically told her, take it off right now before you continue walking, because they'll shoot you over it. So think about that. I mean, that's 1970 something, in, you know, 2000 years after Jesus taught us how to be, and now you could get killed because you're wearing a cross that can represent not necessarily the Jesus teaching, but the sect that follows specific teaching. It's a crazy world, and I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath with everything I shared and think about anything you want to ask me. I know that my experience with the group, and I don't know if everybody's been here before, so if you're new, you can go ahead to the chat window on your phone or on your computer, and type any question you have, whether it's about me or about the foundation or about anywhere in the Bible. Give me a book and verse, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I know Dr. Eriko is on, so Rabbi, if you have a question that you know can trigger a thought or something, please feel free to jump in. You can just do voice if that helps. I'm looking. Okay, so people want to know my background. Okay. And how would somebody register? Okay. Okay, some of my background, I've done a whole session with Dr. Eriko interviewing me, and I think it's available on the YouTube channel. My background is I grew up a refugee. I was born in Libya to Palestinian parents. Both my mom was raised Greek Orthodox. She was born in Jerusalem. Her family roots are from Gaza, the city of Gaza. In the news these days a lot because of the bombings and things like that. And my father is from northern Palestine. He was born in Haifa, but his roots go to the upper Galilee near the border of Lebanon. He actually, one of the things that I learned as I started doing research into family history and so forth is all of our records on my dad's side are documented in the church in Nazareth. So I feel like this very close tie with the land and with the area there. Though I don't have any fanatic views of what the politics of the region are these days. I know that they changed over history and they'll continue to evolve and change. And my only wish for that whole area. So back to how I grew up. I grew up in Libya. I lived there for 13 years. But I was also an outsider because the dominant religion in Libya was Islam, though it never was an issue for me until literally the last year when I lived there. One ignorant person pulled me out of Islamic studies class and told me that never to come back to that class again. They didn't like that I was learning Islam and excelling in learning Islam. It was a subject in school. Other than that, I really never had any issues. I have a lot of family members who are Muslims. So I maintained a sense of Jesus throughout my life. Being influenced by Orthodox and Catholic religion did not resonate with me. So though I went through the early steps of first communions and things like that, I never went to a Christian school, and it never really got a hold of my heart until. So we left Libya when I was 13. I went to the Emirates. United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi. That's where I finished high school. Before then, I migrated to the States and got my college degree in Arizona. My Emirates years were wonderful. It was the beginning of the economic boom there. Went to school, made a lot of friends, and then separated from my family and my friends and landed here with a couple of my cousins in Tucson, Arizona. I started attending church because of my wife mainly. She was attending a Unity Church in Tucson, and we moved to California. I started attending a church in California, and that's where I ran into Dr. Errico. I actually tried not to go into church. I always did the kids ministry, so I was teaching the 2 to 4 year old kids about Jesus and how to color and how to make a lot of noise. But my wife plugged me in one day at the end of the first service and told me there's a dude that's speaking. His name is Dr. Errico. He's speaking about the Bible from the Middle Eastern perspective, the Near Eastern perspective, and you gotta come listen to him. So instead of what I typically did is I just left after the Sunday school. I went into the service and listened to Dr. Errico do his talk about the Lord's Prayer. That was in 1998, maybe 97, 98. Then we slowly started kind of connecting together, and since then we've been working together. I've been, as you can see behind me, I have a lot of books. A lot of them are related to Aramaic and the Bible history. I have some of them in Arabic, some language things. And I've been thrilled with the fact that I have enough knowledge to be able to even share with people. I'm often humbled by what comes out of my mouth because most of it is channeling through me. It's not something that I've, just like today, I had no, Dr. Errico called me in the morning and said, hey, my computer is going to be out and I don't know if I can join. Will you do this? And I had a busy schedule today, but I said, absolutely. I'm always present when the Spirit calls. And here I am. I don't know how many minutes I've been talking, but a half an hour without much preparation, because I know that this is not my work. It's not about me. It's about what you bring, the energy that I'm feeling from you, and then what Spirit decides to do through me. So that's my background at a very high level. I love the teachings of Jesus. If you have not heard me before, I have some of my stuff is out on the internet. Reach out to the foundation. We can send you more links of everything that I've done. Ultimately, I absolutely relate to Jesus because he came to the Near Eastern people and he really speaks to me. Though I left the Middle East when I was, or the Near East when I was 18, 19, I went back and I continue to go back regularly. I was there visiting family just a few weeks ago. And I'm blessed in that because of my age, I'm getting old, is that I touched the generation that was not just my parents, but I touched their parents, and I sat under them and they took care of me when I was growing up. So and I was in tune with their way of thinking, their way of living, the way they thought, and the way they behaved. Because they behaved as a minority also in a very religious area, with Islam and a lot of conflicts, and even sometimes communism and sometimes Christians fighting each other. So each set of grandparents gave me a slightly different perspective. But ultimately, at the bottom of it, the way they survived being plucked out of their homes in 1948 and having to reestablish their lives. And in some cases, some of my extended family, they had to reboot and reboot and reboot. They had no security to this day until they settled in Canada and in the United States and in Denmark. And we're all over the place in Australia. We have no security, and they had no security. And the only thing that made them survive and die of natural causes is their meekness, is following, though religion maybe sometimes riles them up and tells them some things that are not great, that ultimately, if you are getting fed spiritually, if you're hearing Jesus, and my grandfather on my mom's side was an avid student of the Bible. He loved reading the whole the Hebrew Bible as well as the Christian Bible. He almost had it all memorized. And his attitude about women, he insisted that none of my aunts would get married. We're talking Middle East, until they all finished college. Or finish some kind of a certification program. He would not let them go out into society without having that in their hand to enable them to be productive in society. And my mom was, I usually say it's the first class, but I was corrected recently by her that she was in the second graduating class of women from the university in Benghazi in Libya. So the thinking and of my grandparents of how to survive amongst migrating from country to country, not city to city, learning new culture, learning how to cope, learning new business, the new methodology, and surviving and thriving, and then staying true to each other in education, in love, and compassion. We had neighbors who were Jewish before the 1967 war between the Arabs and Israel, who were they were neighbors, and we interacted. We were Palestinians, which in today's thinking, a Palestinian and somebody who is Jewish should not get along. One of the fallacies of that is there are Palestinian Jews. They actually lived in that land and grew up long before the modern state of Israel was established. So we've lived as neighbors for years, and we helped each other during the World War II when the Holocaust was taking place. My grandfather on my dad's side was a vegetable inspector on the border between Palestine and kind of Syrian Lebanese border, the northern border. And he would see families hiding behind the vegetables on the trucks, and he would let them in because he knew if he would have flagged them, which would have been his job to flag them based on the British mandate and the British authority at the time, he knew that he would be sending them to death. His compassion said, come on in. And he lived a life never being resentful. I know that on an intellectual part, when I tell the story, some of my friends could think like, what an idiot, or he was stabbed in the back. But I knew him, and he knew that there was a sense of betrayal, but at the same time, there was a sense of survival and sense of being thankful to God. He did the right thing, and he would have never questioned that what he did was the right thing. So, and I know that I support that position. He's no longer with us to tell us exactly how he feels, but I knew that he was content, and he had a very rough life because of that departure from his land and his home. But he just tried to go on day by day, living a good life, raising a good family, and I contribute a lot of who I am to the way all my grandparents and my parents have raised me. So that's my story. It's a personal journey, and I see other questions. So let me see what's coming here. The question about how could one register, contact the foundation. Basically send us your email. That way we can, it's not just sharing the link, it's sharing the what comes after, which is the recordings and things like that. So it's helpful to be, if you decide to join as a member, then you get the newsletter and other things. So go to nuhra.com. I'll type it in here. And that should guide you through all of that. Okay, let me go back to the questions. Okay, how to follow, how to follow a daily practice. Share with us how to follow a daily practice in meditation. Meditation is really a personal thing, and I touched on it with what Jesus taught. For some people it resonates to have a ritual that goes with that time, that dedicated time. For other people, they could be walking, running, showering, doing anything, and make that connection. I think it takes time. If you struggle with focus, figure out a way to get you focused. If it's music, if it's lighting, if it's your favorite chair or recliner, or bed in some cases, if you lie in bed in a way that I try to kind of keep, not lie totally flat, but sometimes I am waking up in the morning or I'm going to bed, and that's when my mind quiets and I can start communing with God. And per Jesus' teaching and my practice, meditation is, because I know there are some like repetitive words that you could say as you're focusing, but the ultimate state of meditation is total quietness and really listening. Remember, if you have not heard Dr. Eric talk about this, or me, the word slotha, the word prayer, comes from the word slaw in Aramaic, which is to set a trap. And one of my absolute favorite books of Dr. Eric's is Setting a Trap for God. And I think it's still available in print because it's coming through Unity or the Unity Church. So to slaw, to be in a mode of being a trap, this is a hunting trap. So if you imagine it, if that trap is making a lot of noise, no animal is going to come anywhere near it. The same way, that's meditation. If you have a lot of noise in your head, in your heart, and your mind, the signal is going to be disrupted by that. So figure out a way to quiet your mind. And sometimes I do the Lord's Prayer, but I don't do the whole thing. I just do the awun, which is calling the Father to be with me. And I just repeat awun and take a deep breath, and awun and take a deep breath. Or sometimes I say nehwe soyanach. Nehwe soyanach is thy will be done. And that's my favorite segment of the Lord's Prayer. So I can just repeat it until that the will of God overcomes me, and I quiet my mind, and I don't need to repeat it anymore. And I just start feeling the energy of God come through me. But then sometimes I need that in the middle of a meeting. So I built basically in my toolbox, I can trick myself almost into that moment, because I need to respond to maybe the 5 people or the 10 people in the meeting, or the people who are in church. There could be 100 of them. I need to refocus and handle a situation or something. So I can get into that quickly, but that's with practice. So hopefully that gives you an idea. As I said, if you do start with whatever works for you to quiet your mind. After a while, you'll discover if it is sound, if it is light, if it is candles, if it is incense, you'll find that the tools that got you there are no longer necessary, and you can snap right into meditation, into communication with God, and saying, God, I'm here. I want to listen. I need you now. I want to listen. I want to be that child of God that I've been working really hard on getting the credentials of it, and it takes daily work. Give me that inspiration, and that's that. You will get there, and I promise you, if you practice it, you'll get there. And don't make it once a day, or only from 8 to 8:30. Start maybe there, but eventually you'll find yourself in constant meditation with God, and you'll find it while you're walking the dog, talking to the family members who really upset you when they say things, and slowly you'll just get that whole Jesus, that the Christhood comes to you, and then you start coming in and out of it, and your life would be in a lot more peace. At least that's the way I do it, and it works for me. Okay, background, meditation. Okay. So this is, I'm guessing, Miltha. So Miltha is that these are the words that are typed here. Miltha it's translated into the word, but you really have to go listen to either my sessions or Dr. Rocco's sessions about the depth of that. And there are a lot of people who refuse to actually translate it, because it's such a powerful, it's the mind energy. When we speak, we basically take all the power of knowledge and put it into letters and sounds and bring it out. So when the Apostle John, in the Gospel according to Saint John, uses Miltha, and he even, though Miltha in Aramaic is feminine, he gives it a he the Miltha. So he as in masculine Miltha, because it's an Aramaic hangover, so it's for us it might seem weird, but because he's taking God's energy, mind energy, and giving it to us, bringing it through the millennia. Again, there is no time here. There is no time. There is no space. And here's this energy that's coming at us. That's what he's talking about. Just like in the creation energy, Brashith is the same beginning, in the beginning, or before man's reckoned time. So before time was invented, Miltha was. Just like before man's reckoned time, the creation process began. Funnily enough, I just watched a movie about time, and some of these concepts are scattered in it. I'm not saying I recommend the movie necessarily, but it's the fact that time is an invention, that's a human invention. Without us being here, there is no time. So the Miltha was always in existence, and that energy, that mind energy, came to us and was manifested, and then was told to us by the man Jesus. So that's at a very high level what the Miltha is. Now the other one is Mithilde Mendresh, and I'm not sure what that means, but Mithilde Mendresh, it's like Dresh is typically affiliated with a teaching or a study. And Mithilde is related to probably birth. So it's like birth through study is maybe where this is coming. Min is from. So it's like what you're saying here is Mithilde Min Dresh is born from teachings. And Yelda, or Yeled, which is referencing that a child, typically a male child. I hope I'm getting this right, and if you want to tell me below that, if I got what you're going after. Okay, another question. Is it true that Jesus is depicted with long flowing hair and a beard because Roman gods were depicted like that, and that during his time, Jewish men were more likely to have short hair? We don't really have an image of him. I think the long beard, probably being a rabbi, there's a good chance that he had a beard, and he probably pulled on it a lot. And the people who are listening to him probably, yanked theirs because he really challenged the status quo of his time. As far as the hair, if you think about today's Orthodox Jews, they do have the grown hair on the side and some of the hair coming down, covering the neck. So there is a good chance that some of those traditions kind of carried over time. Again, we don't have a photo of Jesus. In Roman time, they made him look Roman. Da Vinci made him look like a good-looking Italian, along with the apostles, and he made the apostles look like these wise, old, learned men. And if we really read the Bible, I was just looking at some of the Bible before I got on, about how Jesus was constantly struggling with these young men that he recruited. One thing about the Near East that's cultural is you typically don't follow somebody who's younger than you are. And you would challenge anybody who's younger than you are, because you have more knowledge and more years on earth to know more. So that's the hierarchy, the cultural hierarchy. But if you read how he recruited them, they were basically, sitting with their dad fishing, and he said, okay, come follow me, and that's a great honor to have a teacher take you under their wing. So they followed him, but that means that they were very, very young, maybe late teens, early 20s max. And he had to be in his late 20s, maybe early 30s to have the authority to even have somebody follow him. And I'm sure that he was constantly challenged because of that by the older rabbis when he was introducing new thoughts around spirituality. But yeah, all the other images, Da Vinci, all that stuff, he probably had Italian models sitting at a table. Jesus never sat at a table. He probably, all his meals were somewhere on the ground, on a sheet or on a blanket, and communal style. So that's, we can, next time I do the Last Supper or something, I can get into that. Again, it's been covered by both Dr. Rocco and myself. Please explain the Aramaic words, phrases, or scripture we should use to enhance our experience with our intuition that Elijah experienced as the still small voice within. I shared some of that. I shared that I use components of the Lord's Prayer, the Awun. You can tune it if you want to, and I know that if you go on YouTube, there are some people who do a lot of work with it. To me, just saying Awun is calling the Father, and connecting with the Father. Nehwe Sowyannach, again, that resonates with me, that thy will be done. So it's not my will, it's God's will, wherever I'm doing. And it does not conflict with my desires. So I'm often happy with that will. Happy with the outcome. Those are some of the things that the how doesn't really matter that much. You'll discover with more time, it's less about the words, it's less about the practices, is making the connection. That's my experience. In New Thought, there are terms that I am presence and the Christ consciousness in relation to Aramaic terms. In relation to Aramaic terms and meanings, are these concepts consistent with Jesus' teachings in Aramaic? So, I am presence is I think Jesus was present, and he really focused. So in New Thought, there is the eternal now, one of the teachings, at least in Unity. And it was my favorite aspect of Unity, is capturing that eternal now, because we spend too much time regretting and thinking about the past or worrying about the future, and neither one is typically a productive exercise. But being in the now is very hard to accomplish as well. So relying on the past not to repeat mistakes, things like that, is a good exercise. But then you need to work with some of Jesus's concepts around forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. So to undo, because again, when I talked about there is, time is our invention. I know I experience it, and I know I've talked to a lot of people about it, and they experience it. In our soul, in our essence, there is no sense of time. If I got hurt when I was 3 years old by an incident, or when I was told a name by somebody when I was 17 or 22 or whatever age, if I don't go do that work on those things, they will be present with me, and they will continue to bother me. So so I am presence is a great way to say I am here now. But how do I get to capture that? And it doesn't conflict with Jesus, because he was about the now. He was, don't live in the past. And he thought, like, because people also there curse previous generations and future generations, and he thought a lot about not carrying those cultural traditions forward, and putting curses on people who are not supposed, not putting curses on anybody, but also not having this thought that if somebody puts a curse on you and your family and the next generations, that it has any power over you. You are a spirit coming from the original spirit of God, and there is nothing to, damage that, except your thoughts. And the Christ consciousness, we talk a lot about that. It's a confusing, it's kind of like, if Jesus's teachings are to us and directly hit us, the Christ consciousness is the elevated state that we would be in by doing the things that Jesus told us to do. So it's very important to differentiate between this part, feeling elevated, versus your daily behavior elevating you. Having compassion, doing the right thing all the time. I talked about the gas station people who refused to gouge and were happy and helped their community. That's Christ consciousness in action. So those are the things. Being that voice, and not risking your career over it every time in a meeting or something like that. That's not what I'm suggesting, because change does take time sometimes, and especially in big organizations. But in smaller organizations, you can influence that. You can say, we're not going to be about greed. We're not going to be about cheating. We're going to be transparent. And those businesses, more often than not, do succeed because they're honest in their way of doing it. So that, but I don't think it conflicts, that those thoughts do not conflict necessarily with Jesus or the Aramaic teachings. And they're one and the same. Links. Okay. So the people want the YouTube link. So let me do the YouTube link real quickly, since I probably won't be able to. So it's youtube.com/Rocco A. Erico 7. And I had to pick a number 7, to allow YouTube to add it. I don't know if there's another Rocco Erico or something, but they would not let me do it without the 7. So from an Aramaic tradition, 7 is a holy number, 7 days of creation, etc. So I picked that number. That's so when you ask me why 7. Okay, let me go back to the questions. YouTube. Please share about fasting. Does it have to be bread and water? Fasting, I like the idea in modern days because we have air conditioning, but we also have extreme weather cases and so forth. Depriving yourself from something to remind yourself to be compassionate, to feel with the people who don't have meals in front of them. Do it your way. Religion has, in Islam, is fasting completely, no water, no food, from sunrise to sunset. And at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, that was a big task, because if you think, the month of fasting is Ramadan, and because they're on a lunar calendar, Ramadan sometimes falls in the middle of winter or the middle of summer in the Saudi desert. So it can be very taxing. But he also ordered them, same way as Jesus did, is that when you fast, you don't tell anybody that you're fasting. You keep yourself clean, and you don't mention it. You just you go about your day as if you weren't fasting. And today, a lot of it lost its meaning. People adjust the work hours, and not all people do that, but sometimes to make it easier on people and make people more able to comply. The authorities have changed things a little bit to make it easier on people. So that, and why just 1 month and do it all at once or so forth? You can ask a lot of questions. A lot of Christians do it right before Easter for 40 days. They eat only vegetarian. They take the meat out. I've known people who quit drinking alcohol, their favorite glass of wine. They stop doing it during that period. So I think in modern days, it's about cleansing your body, resetting, but more than anything is actually feeling for your community and the people who are around us around the world now, because our community is becoming global, whether we like it or not, who are suffering during the year round with lack of water, lack of sanitation, lack of good food, lack of any food. So whatever works for you, to tell you that, hey, I'm connecting, I'm awakening towards connecting with my soul brothers and sisters around the world, do it that way, is my recommendation. And if you have any medical conditions, talk to your doctor about it, so you're not depriving yourself of something that could send you into the emergency room, which I've seen people do that. Though typically, if you're coming from a spiritual space and you're doing this for all the right reasons, you'll know, your body will know what you're working with, and hopefully you won't make decisions that could compromise your health. Okay, next one. I lost somebody with the word miltha. Miltha is translated in English as the Word. It's the first chapter of John, the Gospel of John. It's used there a lot. The Word was with God in the beginning, and the Word was always with God. And that very same, that word was ... It goes on and on and on about the miltha, and that's what I was. Miltha is the Aramaic term, and I prefer using it than the English word word. So that's what I was. So if you go back and listen to what I talked about, hopefully it will make more sense. And we are 1 minute away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the rest of the questions. Let me go ahead and save them real quickly. I'll next week I am traveling, so I might not be able to join next week, and maybe the week after I'm going to be out of town, and it's bad time for me. I have other events happening at this time. But what I'll do is I'll set some time when I'm back with Dr. Errico, and I'll take on the rest of the questions that came tonight. I really appreciate what you're joining us. I appreciate your time. I want to go ahead and share my screen one more time. And just 1 second. I would love to thank anybody who donates. Dr. Errico and I do this work and give our time to spread the news. So for those of you who do support us, and there are links on the foundation's website And I think I added it also to YouTube, where you can donate to support the Wednesday night classes. So thank you if you do that. And for any future stuff, go to the website. Lynn does an awesome job of keeping the calendar, and Dr. Erico does church services, and often they're broadcast on Zoom. So contact us if the link is not clear. And some of those classes he doesn't cover the same material that he does. He basically, depending on the community, he does that. And I'm saying see you next Wednesday. I'm sure Dr. Erico's technology issues will be resolved by then, and he'll be leading us one more time. Blessings, and we'll talk to you soon.